Welcome to Beyond the Frontline podcast, where your hosts, U.S. Air Force veterans Donna Hoffmeyer and Jay Johnson, will help you transition from the front line to the home front. Listen every other Wednesday as they will bring great conversations, resources, tips, and feel-good stories that will resonate and relate. Now, here's your hosts, Donna Hoffmeyer and Jay Johnson.
Hey, everyone. It's Donna, and I am here solo. Well, sort of solo. I have somebody with me, but Jay's out doing amazing things as he always does. He's off to go motivationally speak another group of people, and we're going to have a whole bunch of little Jays in this world, all because they've listened to him and his motivational speaking, right? So he's off and doing that. And so I get to be here with actually somebody that's a friend of mine, and we met probably about 3 or 4 years ago. We were both new, and I got dragged into this chamber, and I didn't know anything. I just retired from the military, and I was like, oh, Lord, what am I doing? And I walked in this place, and I don't know anybody, and I meet this girl, this lady, and I meet Arlene, and Arlene looks as shy as I do. We're just sitting there both like, hey, and we're quiet, and we don't know what to do. And over time, Arlene and I talked many, many times, and we've become friends. And her and I just have similar backgrounds in parallel universes. That's what I would call it. So let me introduce her formally. Arlene is a 32-year police officer, 22 years of it in the NYPD. And she was one of the police officers that were actually at 9/11. When she got done her career, she's like, hey, I need to break in some warmer weather. And she moved down to Texas in 2010. And she's like, but I'm not ready to hang it up yet. So she did EMS and Deputy Comal County Sheriff. And she did that for another 4 or 5 years. And then she finally decided to hang those belts up. And then she's like, damn, now what? And she's not without ideas. And the next thing you know, she became a real estate agent. And that's about when I met her. And then most recently, I don't know, probably a year ago or so, I noticed Arlene now says, hey, guess what? I'm going to do travel agent. And I was like, oh, that is awesome. And that is where this podcast is leading to. Right, Arlene?
Absolutely. I love to travel, and I'm a self-proclaimed foodie. So
you are. And I see you. I see you sometimes when we get together, but I see you most on Facebook lately. And when Arlene became a travel agent, well, you became a travel agent because why? Might as well tell them.
I became a travel agent because I love to travel, and then I was like, I'm always talking about traveling, so might as well make a career out of it.
But what did you start doing? You started doing what? The cruises. That's when you really...
The cruises, yeah. I love cruising. It's not for everybody, but I love it.
That's your thing. And that's what I noticed. She was going on a cruise, and then I would notice, oh, I'm going on another cruise. And I think like 3 or 4 cruises later, she's like, I'm a travel agent. So, Arlene, let's talk about what we want to get into. Actually, I want to back up just a tiny bit. You said something to me, and we talked about it a little bit in the pre-meet. You said after I finally hung it up, I cried for 3 days. Like I wasn't sure what to do. Right?
Yeah. I just didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
It was just like everything just stopped all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So I had no identity.
Yeah. And that's why the military and first responder worlds relate so much, right? That it is such a big part of our identity that when that's taken out, we're like, now what? Who are we? We don't have that same identity. And I think I mentioned to you, I said, putting on the uniform was sometimes like putting on armor. It was like a protective measure for us. We felt more safe in that, right? And so now we are like, whoop, uniform's gone. You're like, I have to go meet people in our minds kind of naked, right? We're like, okay, I have a polo shirt and pants. Yeah.
Now people are looking at you like a regular person.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
not.
There's no identifier to that. So the reason why I say all this was because if you heard my introduction of her, she went from a very long, successful career as a police officer. And then when she moved to Texas, she went back to where she identified, right? EMS and deputy sheriff of Comal County. Those were things that she could relate to, right? Like I grab that
Yes.
back. So you're using your skills, probably more of your hard skills, like back into a world you know. And then when that was all done, then the reinventing happened, right? You're like, okay, I'm going to do real estate, which for Arlene, because I know her, that's a big step. Because Arlene, you're more introverted, right?
I'm a very introvert. I would never, people would never realize that, but I'm an introvert. I don't like to talk to people. But I've chosen two careers that I actually have to talk to people. Um,
What brought you to that? Like, what kind of brought you into
it was
saying,
actually a funny story. My friend, who's a real estate broker, says, "Why don't you try it?" I'm like, "Okay, can't hurt." Took classes, got my license, got into a brokerage, start making money. Um, and I was like, "Okay, this is cool."
oh, that's too funny. It's like challenge on. Oh, that's hilarious. So, and then of course, then after that, you were like, well, hell, I like traveling, I like food, I like all this. You kind of identified it. Now you're using your soft skills again, right? I'm going to go be a travel agent. So you kind of, it's just interesting. Like you went from what you identified with, and then you're like, then you stepped out into a world that you didn't know, right? You didn't know anything about real estate, you didn't know anything about travel agent. So you went from using all those hard skills and now using all your soft skills, right?
Right.
And I bring that up to the audience because I it's not really the topic of the day. We're going to get into that in a second, but I just as I was looking at her story, I was like, yeah, there it is, right? We take our hard skills, we use them, we do well, we get really proficient. And when it's gone, then we're just like, now what? And the people that I see have the best success are the people that figure out how to utilize those soft skills and find something that of interest to them and apply those soft skills there, right? So you're
Right.
like, hell, food, travel, let's go.
Well, I wasn't really interested in real estate, to tell you the truth. And then I just, bought and sold houses of my own.
Yeah,
But I was like, travel, hey, I could do that. I love to travel.
that's funny. Do you still do real estate?
I do.
You do. Do
I
you
do.
find more joy in it as you get more comfortable in it?
I do.
Yeah.
I find more joy. I'm easier to talk to.
Yeah.
Uh, but travel, I think, is my real niche.
You like that.
I can talk to you about places, all day long.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I can tell. I mean, I've seen you over the years and I can see your comfort level. I mean, we see each other often at like our veteran breakfast and stuff like that. And there's an ease about you. You can see the difference. So I think that's awesome. So I know it's just something I noted. I was like, that's kind of neat. So anywho, so speaking of the last part, travel. So this is the idea that I came to her with one day. We were putting together our season for the podcast, and Jay and I were brainstorming different ideas. And I said, "Hey, or maybe he said it. One of us put down travel, like where to travel. I think he did, like where would be good places for veterans to travel." And I was like, "Ooh, that's a good one because Disney is not it. I'm sorry. I mean, I've been, but Lord, I'm so stressed out. There's like way too many people. Lines are too long. It's too hot. I'm stressed out because of my kids lost. Where are we at? Ugh. By the time I was done Disney vacation, I was more stressed out and broke. So I was like, Lord. So then I thought, well, you know what? Why don't we try to do a podcast on travel for veterans that are much more conducive to them, things that are not overcrowded, things that are not loud. And, there's nothing worse than going someplace and we can't hear each other. Like I went to a breakfast, there's a restaurant here in town, and three of us went there for breakfast and the music was blaring. And I was like, oh my God. So we asked them, like, could you turn the music down a little? No, management doesn't let us. I felt like I was in a club. I'm like yelling at my friends, and we are all deaf because we're all veterans, right? And I was like,
True.
it wasn't a relaxing breakfast at all, you know? So, Arlene, I'm yapping away here. I'm going to turn it on to you.
Okay, sounds
Let's
great.
talk about some ideal places for veterans. Like, where do you suggest? What's your list? Is this a top 10 list, or is this just what you researched?
I kind of researched. I also know some of these places.
Mm,
Um, I pref I prefer beaches. That's not for everybody, and
right.
I understand that. I love amusement parks, but I don't like the Disney vibe. So some of the beaches that I've gone to is mostly the Northeast, like Maine,
Mm,
Vermont, the Boston area, Vermont, Connecticut, even some of the New York City beaches, New York State beaches. They're wonderful. Um, there's also the times that you people should go, especially veterans.
not May.
Not May, not matter of fact, I just sent someone to Cancun for spring break, and that's fun.
Yeah.
Uh, have fun. But a little bit off the off seasons, the Caribbean's islands, there's smaller Caribbeans, and I'll get into that. Um, but there are many beaches that you can go to. The Pacific Northwest, um, the Seattle area. There's some beaches in the Washington State area that is beautiful. Um, so
And
Hawaii,
not necessarily overcrowded
not
or
necessarily overcrowded. Hawaii, Europe, some of the Europe areas. Um,
any specific places in Europe that you think of or
well, for mostly just not for beaches, but I'm talking about like tourism,
mm,
Scotland, Ireland,
Scotland? Beautiful.
yeah,
Been there.
beautiful, beautiful areas.
I
Uh,
actually went to Loch Ness. We
ooh,
did not see Ness, but I was there. Damn cold, even in the summer.
right.
I'm going to caveat that because I'm an East Coast girl too. Like I'm from New Hampshire. So I'm going to say
Oh,
that
okay.
I, I was home a couple summers ago and I brought my daughter and I said, hey, let's go to the coast. New Hampshire has a 13-mile coast,
Mhm.
right? You know that you're an East Coast girl. And so I said, let's go to the coast, right? And so we get there and she was like, I said, now remember, this is not the Gulf. We live near the Gulf and you can swim in the Gulf in November half the time, right? And so she gets in, she's like blue immediately. She's like, what is this? I'm like, this is the East Coast.
But there are beaches that you can go as a family or even solitude with your spouse or your significant other that are mo very beautiful and very quiet. Not a lot of tourism. So
What about, do you know, like the islands in Maine?
I do not know the islands in Maine, but I know like right off the coast. So,
Yes. So right off the coast, and I just know this because I went to college in Maine. Right off the coast, there is a ton of little islands, and you can't bring a car, and you can take a bike, and you ferry to them, and so nice and so out of the way. And some like you can go to a lighthouse. You know, there's
oh
all
yeah.
that stuff. Yeah, there's one for your travel book, but there's a lot of little islands in Maine. Yeah, like that.
Right.
So
And with talking about water, fishing excursions, and even down
mm,
here in Texas, there's a lot of fishing charters that are smaller, and not a lot of people are congregating, on this one particular boat. There are private charters. There are just private people that take veterans out, or people that have um, issues with crowds. Um,
yes.
so.
Where where would be a great place for people to kind of look for, like if they say, I want to do a fishing trip, what's the best way to go?
Uh, I would say like Port Lavaca,
Hmm.
um, Rockport.
Yes, Rockport is
Oh,
very underrated. Yes. There's a lot of good fishing in Rockport.
oh yeah.
That's another good one. What about on is there anything out on the other side, like Galveston? Crystal City.
Oh yeah.
Is there fishing out there too?
There are tons of fishing out there. I personally don't fish, but
She's like,
it's
I'm on the cruise
telling.
ship. I'm not
I'd rather be on a
fishing.
cruise. But there's Galveston Island.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of fishing charters as well. So
Mm. Where oh, I just had a question in my head and it just popped out. Okay. Well, we'll just keep going. All right. So where else are you recommending? So you're saying the East Coast is great. So Maine's great. A lot of people don't realize that you can get out there. There is some touristy spots there. Like
oh, of course.
Kennebunkport is very touristy. The Bushes live there, and that's very touristy. You can take whale tours there and stuff like that. But if you go up, and you go up on the coast and stuff, I mean, there is a lot of remote places up there.
Oh yeah. Especially like lakes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from New York, so we have Lake Placid.
Mm-hmm.
We have the Niagara Falls area, even though it's a little touristy, but not a lot of people go up there, which is ironic.
If you go in a off season, like you can kind of hit like the springtime sometimes, that it's a lot less. I know that because I took my daughter up as the beginning, just after school ended, and we stopped up there.
Right.
And went up there, and it wasn't crowded at all. It was pretty nice. So what okay, so go on, move on. I'm gonna hold my thoughts in my head here.
Okay, so moving on from beaches and lakes and all these areas that are very beautiful. I mean, throughout the United States, you can find beautiful lakes and stuff like that, and beaches. Because I'm a cruiser, I can tell you like riverboat cruises that go up the Mississippi.
I saw that the other day. That it goes all the way up. So here, let's talk about this on cruises, because you say cruise, and like I'm going on a couple this year, and
Right.
yeah, I'm not a fan of crowds, so I'm all like, oh, I'm getting a balcony room so I can go sit. You have a duck. That's her sign.
Thank you.
The duck for cruising, and I don't like that big crowd thing. So talk about cruises, because you just said that, like river cruises versus a big cruise. Like, what are options in that world? What should somebody look for that wants something that's a little not stressful to them?
Well, if it's just adults only, there are a lot of adult only riverboat cruises. Some are in Europe and some are up the Mississippi. On a paddle boat, much less.
Oh,
now how romantic is that?
That is nice. And they make a lot of stops too, don't they?
Oh yeah,
that's kind of cool.
So you don't have all the kids running around going on slides and all the stuff that's on big cruises. But with that said, if you do have kids, you do have a family, and you want to go on these bigger cruise ships that have all the amenities for the kids, there are certain times that are the best. Take the kids out for 3-4 days out of school. Might not be the most conducive, but you are building memories with your family.
Right.
Something I have not done because I was working as a law enforcement officer all these years. And I regret that as much as anybody else.
You make a good point right there, is that, I was lucky. I got to retire when my kids are still in the house, so we take advantage and we do what we can, because we didn't have as much time and whatnot. So that is something for people to keep in mind. It's like, you have time now, don't regret what you can't, change, but move forward. Can you go with your family? Can you bring your grandchildren? That kind of thing. So kind of a good point.
Yeah, there's 3 or 4 day cruises out of New York, Galveston, Florida, New Orleans. That if you go on an off season, it's not as crowded.
What's off season for cruising?
We're looking at anywhere from mid-January to February, to anywhere from September through October.
Yeah, right when all our kids are in school. Oh, and not the holidays. God,
No, not the holiday.
that.
I'm actually going on a cruise in January of 2025, just missing New Year's Eve, but the boat is sold out.
So, okay, let's talk about a little bit about this. You said that just sparked an idea just for the audience. And I found this out because we're doing a family cruise for my dad, turned 80 this year. So we're gonna go do in Alaska. Yeah, January 2nd. He was just over a New Year baby. And we're gonna go do a Alaska cruise.
Oh,
in
nice.
honor of that. Yeah. And that is one thing we found out. They're like, we were, I don't know, 10 months out, and the travel agent's like, oh, well, you're kind of late in the game. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what? And so there's this surge that's happened, right? Like during COVID, it was RVs and campers. Like everybody was buying those, right?
Yes.
And now it seems to be cruising. Is that correct?
It's absolutely correct. What happened to the industry is basically people are tired of staying home.
Yeah.
Which actually makes it more desirable for veterans and law enforcement officers and military to stay home. Because now everybody's gone cruises, Florida, whatever. But the cruising industry has bounced back tenfold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Prices have gone up a little slightly, but you're also not paying hotel room. You're not paying
there's that.
airplane fees.
Yeah,
If you can drive to the port.
You can pay it off over time too. I mean, like it's not like that's a nice thing. I mean, our because you weren't a travel agent, I would have gone to you, but you weren't a travel agent then. Okay. But our agent was like, you have up until like I think it's like 24 days out, and she goes, you can cancel and all your money back. So I say that to the audience because like we're not promoting any one thing, but just so you know, in cruising that you can book it, you can pay on it, do all this stuff, and at the very end, if you're like a month out and you're like, you know what? Whatever happened, can't do it. You can actually cancel the whole thing, and
you can, but just remember, you would probably need travel protection.
Oh yeah, there's all that stuff too.
That helps as well to get your money back.
I'm glad you said that. I think I actually have to go do that. So people are trying to decide what to do, right? They're like, oh, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do that. There's good and bad with everything, right? You got to think about, and you got to think what works for you. I think when I get on the ship, I've been on a cruise once before. When I get on the ship, I'm like good to go. But I can tell you up to it I find it completely stressful because you have to like make all these decisions, like what excursions you want to go on and don't forget, like you said, the travel protection. I'm like, oh yeah, I got to do that.
Well, that's what having a travel advisor or agent helps with.
Well, and that kind of was my point was, if you decide to embark on something like this and you find it overwhelming, then go to a travel agent. Absolutely. And because I can just call mine and go like, I don't know, what do I do? And then she gives me options and then I pick and we kind of go. So that's one thing to think about, right? When you're cruising.
Right. Well, we do, no matter where you travel or what you want to do, is we actually just take all that stress and put it in the computer and says, okay, this is what you need to do.
How does it work? So people understand how travel agents work, and our veteran community understands this. We don't pay you as a consumer directly, right? Like no. How does payment happen? So people understand that, because that's sometimes like a misconception on like they're going to charge 80% more or whatever. Like how does it work?
Well, the travel industry basically pays us our commission through our vendors. For instance, a hotel booking. You actually, if you book the hotel on your own, you're actually paying someone else's commission. It's all built in, no matter who you are. So using a travel agent, you as my consumer does not pay me directly. It's all the funds that's basically gathered by.
So it's all built in. So if we went to a cruise line on our own, you're going to hit a travel agent. They're travel agents, right? You have to, because you have to book through somewhere, and they're going to get it. Like somebody's going to, it's all built
Someone's
in
going to get it.
already.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
Someone's
all
going to
built
get
in.
it. Right. So no matter what, you're paying for it somewhere.
Exactly.
Right.
So why not use your own? And we're here for you 24/7.
Why not use Arlene? That she's here 24/7. There you go.
And I always have my phone on.
Yes. I know. Unfortunately, I do too. I'm so bad.
Mm.
So so we talked about beaches are a good place to go. East Coast is really great. A lot of unexplored areas up there. I'll give you another one. Here's one for your hat. It's just because I know this because my husband's from Michigan. Northern Michigan's gorgeous. There's a lot up there and it's beautiful. Just don't go during the season when all the flies come out. I think that's like May or something.
The
That's bad.
Wisconsin Dells as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that's
area is
beautiful. Yeah.
it's beautiful,
Yeah.
right? There's beautiful areas up there. You don't have to hit the tourist spots. You don't have to be in them. You can get Airbnbs. Do you guys do that? Do you help book things like Airbnbs or is it
Oh,
hotels?
absolutely.
Oh, you do that
Yeah.
too. See, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
that's one of my biggest sellers is everybody wants an Airbnb.
Hell yeah, because we don't want to be near people. Except
True.
our people.
Right.
I don't want to be near people I don't know. I want to be near people I know
Right.
and they understand my quirks, right? Like I don't want to do that, right? So
Well,
that's
yeah.
go ahead.
Sorry. To touch back on the riverboat cruises is basically that's almost the Airbnb of cruising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about trains?
Trains. There's a lot of train tours. You can go from one end of the US to the next on one single train.
What's the good and bad about it? Like if somebody is trying to decide what they want to do, what would be the pros and the cons they need to think about?
Trains are nice. They are basically a cruise ship on land.
On wheels.
On wheels. They have dining cars, they have sleeper cars, they have regular seats if it's a short trip. Very comfortable train cars. I took a train ride from Chicago down to Texas many, many years ago, and the scenic was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they have well, I wouldn't call it open air, but a glass and dome car that you could just literally sit there with a cup of coffee and just wow.
If
The
that was a
city.
real convertible, that would be some serious bugs in your teeth.
Well, the countryside is so beautiful. And you get to see your next adventure. Might be in Colorado
Yeah.
in the springtime.
That is the good part about things like cruising and trains and, whether it's a river cruise or a big cruise and the trains that you get to say, God, I want to go back and see this,
Yes.
like I want to go stop at this port or I don't ever want to see that again.
Yeah.
Like there were some stops on the cruise I took. I was like, yeah, no, thank you. Like I wasn't interested. Right. But I just stayed on the cruise ship that day, but there were stops. So I'm like, oh, this is awesome, So, and then maybe you want to go back to that directly,
Exactly.
and check that one
I
out.
actually went back after that train ride many years ago, back to Colorado, and it was amazing, especially during the summer because I don't ski. But the mountains, just the fresh air, the greenery, all that.
That's another good point too,
Yeah.
that when we're so we get overstimulated very
Right.
easy, right? And I actually never realized how much I did until I looked back on things. I remember specifically one time I was actually at the North Star Mall, right? Arlene, you'll know the size of it, and it's busy on a weekend, right? It's like insane. I am not a mall person, right? But I don't know why we went. For some reason we went, and I had my parents with me who are not used to a city, right? And
Okay.
we're in there. My parents do not have cell phones at the time. They have, I think, my daughter in a stroller, and they walked off somewhere. And I couldn't find them.
And you
And
went to a
I
panic mode.
panicked. And then when I did find them, I was not nice. I'm like, we're out of here. And I literally marched everybody out. Now I look back on it going, oh yeah, that was not a stress response. Like I seriously was that tense, right? So, you take us and go on vacation and you're in those very crowded situations. Like Vegas on the Strip doesn't do it
Oh,
for me.
no.
I'm like, God, no. And I have family out there. I can go there all the time if I want to, but I could go to a couple things. So like I wouldn't go and check some stuff out.
Right.
Not my place to hang. And it's not with little kids either. I'm like, yeah, heck no.
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah, wasn't my
Um,
thing.
yeah, but I love quiet.
Yes.
Even on a huge cruise ship, I will find somewhere quiet.
Well, tell me
Um,
about that. So if you hit a cruise ship, so people are like, oh, my whole family wants to go on a cruise ship and I don't want to go. And it's going to be too crowded. Well, we have to do the Macarena and I don't want to do this stuff, right? Because that's
there
what you
are,
think. So
yeah, on the lower decks, especially on the running tracks and stuff, places like that, there are very quiet areas built in.
built in for that you can get
Yeah.
away from even your own family if you
You
want
can
to.
just get away. I fell asleep on my last one for almost 2 hours. Just,
See, and you can be
I
moving and
just
not
sat
get
there.
lost.
I just sat there and went to sleep.
Knocked out. And they even have, I think you told me this, I did giggle. Don't they even have like sometimes like a military night or something like that?
Yes,
They'll
yes.
do. So if people are
If,
really jonesing for their veteran friends, go hit the military night and you all can go
oh yeah.
complain about the crowds together or
But yeah,
tell them what
I
deck
love,
to go sleep on. Yeah.
yeah. But as a society, as we are, especially law enforcement and for or first responders and military, we love our quiet. We love
Yes,
our quiet.
we do. Yeah, and I tell people, like I said, we're going on this Alaska cruise and we opted for a balcony. Now I know that's not necessarily in everybody's budget or not, but you never know. Like they were having a sale. That's kind of what happened. And I was like, well, we're in Alaska and I'd love to go look out and see a whale or an iceberg or something, sipping a cup of tea,
Yeah,
not dealing with 300 other people all at the deck looking at that same whale. Like I don't want to do that. So we opted to get a balcony for that reason. So that's an option, right?
oh,
To,
absolutely. I
you
mean,
know,
I'm a coffee drinker, and I just love to sit there and have some coffee and look out if it's either a balcony off the cruise ship or a balcony off the hotel, and just sit there and just enjoy the peace and quiet.
okay, one more we're going to talk about other places, but one more thing that I was going to mention about cruising. I only know so much because I'm in the middle of planning one right now and I'm stressing out over it. Is like the excursions, right?
Yes.
I'm be straight up. Those damn things are expensive. I'm all like, my God, it's like a car payment. But there are you don't have you don't have to buy an excursion. You can go walk out in the town yourself and go look
Absolutely.
around,
Yeah. You can
right?
rent a moped or a Jeep or a car on your own. So a scooter, bicycles if it's a smaller town.
Yeah.
So
So because and you turn off for me, the excursion's like, oh, you just have to arrive at 6 a.m. And I'm like, yeah, no. And it's
oh,
Alaska, so it's going to be like 20 below in July. No.
I'll make
So
sure you have your jacket with you.
oh God, yes, I will have lots of layers with me. Let me listen. I think I'm excited to see Alaska. Don't get me wrong, but if I have to choose by the weather, it's not going to be Alaska. I'm in
True.
Texas for a reason.
I agree. I agree.
So I'm not knocking it. I'm excited. I think it'll be great. But I just want that to say to people too, like, you're gonna get hit with those questions and don't stress out. Like if you don't want to do it, don't do it. It's no big deal. And find your own adventure. Just go out there yourself and go explore things. And
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, Colorado, there's backpacking in West Virginia. There's, or, Montana. You can just lose yourself in the big sky country. There are so many areas. There's Salt Lake City that you can go out to the actual Salt Lakes
oh,
and just drive and realize that it's not just a city.
it's actually a Salt Lake.
There's actually a Salt Lake.
The
Uh,
things you learn.
there's so many places in the US that you don't have time to even touch on it, that are so beautiful. green, and there's the lakes, and then there are beaches. There's small little quaint towns that everybody forgot.
What are some of your favorite places that you've gone that you would say, oh, I definitely recommend this would be good for a first responder or veteran?
As in a small town, or
Any place. Like, what are your favorite places that you've been?
I've been to West Virginia, up in the Appalachian Mountains.
Mm,
That
those are
is
nice.
beautiful.
That is beautiful up there. I've been there.
And really good food.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I have been to some of the Keys in Florida, which is actually really nice on an off season.
Okay, because I was like, I've looked
Right.
into that, and I'm like, God, that looks so crowded. So
Oh,
off season
off season.
is the key to the Keys. There you
That's
go.
exactly it.
Hmm.
Northeast is my hub. I love the Northeast. I love New York. Yeah, I love New York, and to do the New York City thing. But there is so much more to New York State.
The rest of New York, for you guys, if you don't know this, there's two parts of New York. There's New York City and there's upstate. And that's everything that's not New York City.
Right, exactly. There's Syracuse, there's Buffalo,
Mm-hmm.
and these are the bigger cities. There's Binghamton,
Rochester.
there's Lake Shrewn, Lake Placid.
Mm.
Um, so there's just so many places that I want to go to that I have not.
Mm. So what's your favorite one so far that you've been, like your all-time favorite?
Even though it's about an 8-hour plane ride, I am going to have to say Maui.
Really? I
Yeah.
was in Maui. I was actually right in Lahaina. So when that burned to the ground, I was like, dang,
Yeah,
that
unfortunately,
is pretty out there.
it's beautiful. It's a little bit more low key than Oahu.
Oahu. Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
I will agree. We actually like rented a vehicle and drove around. This was years ago, but it's really low key now, unfortunately. Yeah. Hopefully
True.
they can build that back up. And Maui was beautiful. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Did you have you been to Europe at all? Have you done any?
I have not.
Oh, that's the
Yeah.
next
That's
adventure.
that's the next adventure.
You
Then
talk to me later. I'll give you a laundry list of places to go check out. That's
there
a good
you
one.
go. You can help the agent.
And
Um,
so yeah, I'll say in Europe, you Scotland is gorgeous. England, all that is beautiful. I mean, it's so breathtaking. Like you can't even believe that it's real, like the locks are just gorgeous. Scotland, I've been to Edinburgh and that is beautiful. And it's just all, and then in Europe itself, all the cities they're old,
they're old. Yeah.
and what I miss the most about the cities when you go, it's not like going into a city in the US, right? The one thing that frustrates me, especially like San Antonio doesn't have it. They have the river walk, but they don't have we call it a walk plots, right? This walking area. So every city in Europe has this area that you can't drive in. Like you can only get so far, then you park on the outside and then you like walk it. So the river walk's sort of like that, but not totally.
True. True.
And then you have the restaurants that all have their tables outside, and then they have the different, in Germany had all the wine, and you just walked around and you could shop and window shop, you could try food until 2, because I'm just going to tell you guys, if y'all go to Europe, there's no food between 2 and 5, so bring snacks, because they all stop serving food. And they don't serve again until 5 because they have a balance of life. They're like, oh, we serve till 2 and we take a break and we get ready for dinner. Unlike us, that we just roll into everything.
Right.
And dinners in Europe are 2 and 3 hours, right? That's just normal,
And in Germany, my daughter was in Germany for student exchange. And there are cities or areas that are towns that are green. There's no cars available.
Mm-hmm.
You have to walk.
You have to walk. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and go to places like Kuchenhof. So up in Leiden, they have a Kuchenhof festival, and that's tulips, right? That's where you see those pictures of just tulips as far as the eye can see. It's real. I've been there. I mean, after you see 3 hours of tulips, you're like, okay, it's another tulip. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's like you can't even believe that even exists. And you can take a bike and ride a bike through all this, and
Right.
oh yeah, very romantic, very nice. So Europe has a lot of that. Like if you go to Paris, if you go right outside of Paris, the rural areas out there is just gorgeous. Um, and they're a lot easier to get around that I find than
Hmm.
US cities. Like the East Coast cities are harder than the West Coast cities.
I
You
used to
know
like
that.
those. Yeah, true.
Did you
Um,
drive in New York? You did. You drove in New York
I
City.
did, but I would park my car and take the subway, the buses, mass transit,
Yeah, but when you were on patrol, were you walking patrol or were you driving, cruising patrol?
both.
Oh God.
Yeah.
You go, girl. Like, holy crap. So, all right. Well, I want to kind of wrap this up and kind of summarize this for the veterans and first responders and, all our cousins and their EMS and police and fire department and all our military is that you shouldn't be more stressed than when you started, right? You really should be more relaxed. But you've got to know yourself and you have to know what works for you. So that's number one, I think. Be willing to try stuff, but don't put yourself in a situation where you're just going to be so tense. And I've done it. I went to Disney and we brought the kids and I was sitting there and it was hotter than hell out and it was really crowded and we're drinking our Harry Potter or whatever stuff. And there's a little girl sitting beside me that's 2 is crying with her ice cream. And I looked at her, I'm like, I get you. I get you, kid. Like, I didn't find that fun. That wasn't overly fun for me. What was
Yeah,
fun is as we were leaving leaving, that was great.
it's overstimulating. That's
Right. It's overstimulating. So know that. And if you're a person that gets overstimulated with things like that, I was, and I just didn't really recognize it. I was irritable and I kept that all inside. It was for my kids and I happily did it for them. Um, but I myself was exhausted by the end of it. And I didn't find it super awesome. So think about those things. And how much planning you want to do. And if you find it all overwhelming, then find somebody like Arlene and find a travel agent. And Arlene specifically works with veterans and first responders and all them because she understands that because she was that person. And she did deal with things like PTSD and whatnot from her experiences. So she understands, like when she says, I like quiet, trust me, the girl likes quiet. Like she's like, I'm not going to go on a vacation that is like, Times Square, New Year's, like that's probably not going to happen. So we wanted to bring this to you guys because I don't know. I think it's something we just don't stop and think about. We're just like, okay, let's do a vacation thing, and we really don't put a lot of thought into it, what works best for us. And be honest with your family. It's not
and
wrong. Oh, go
just
ahead.
to kind of capture on that is travel is a vacation, yes, but don't let it stress you out. It should be there to make memories, not
Right.
to stress you out.
And that's a super valid point. If you go someplace and you're all stressed out and you're not able to contain that, then your family is not able, and you're with your family, they're not able to enjoy. So that memory is kind of smeared with mom or dad kind of like was not happy. Like they're kind of gruff. They're kind of just because you were overstimulated, right? So it is about making memories. You could go to something that's low key and be totally engaged in it and having so much fun. And man, your kids are going to remember that. They are going to remember those things. Sometimes my kids will pop up like, remember when? And I'm like thinking back, and it'd be something so small. And they're like, oh my God, that was so funny. That was the best time. And yeah, to me, it was just like this little thing, and they thought it was the best thing ever. So yeah.
Absolutely.
We want to impart some wisdom on everybody today. So don't stress yourself out on vacation, right, Arlene?
That's right. Just make memories.
Right. So, all right,
Good memories.
Good memories, right? So where can they find you?
They can find me at enchantedmemoriestravel.com.
Hmm?
And I believe I had sent you a link to my
I will have it
request a
up.
quote.
Good.
And have them just request a quote. It's free.
Oh, quote. Let me throw this in real quick. So, are there a lot of veteran discounts? I didn't even think of that. There are a lot of places that people could look that they can get a veteran discount or a first responder discount, or is that stuff that you will know, when you're helping them look?
Yes. Yes.
Mm.
I can look for those deals. I even sometimes have rebates. It might be a small rebate, but you still might have something for an extra dinner.
Yeah, exactly. So, again, when you decide to engage with a travel agent, tell them hey, I'm a veteran, I'm a firefighter, I'm a police officer, whatever. And they can look into it and see what's there. So
if you have any disabilities, we can accommodate for that as well.
Yes, that's another thing to be thinking about. And is that very accommodated on cruise ships? And
very,
very much so. Yeah. Which I've seen many people, wheelchairs and whatnot, doing their thing. So that's awesome. All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap this baby up. Arlene, I thank you so much for coming on. This was fun. I was excited.
This was great. I loved it.
Yes, I was excited to talk to you about it. Everybody in the audience, I hope you got a couple tips, a couple ideas. If you want to know specifics, it's a little hard to say, hey, go here and go there, just for the simple reason that everybody has a different journey, and what overstimulates somebody else may not overstimulate another person. So it's really hard to give a very defined list. So I say, go find Arlene, have a talk with her, and she can help you kind of tick through this. And it doesn't matter where they are in the U.S., right? I mean, just because you're in Texas, you can call from New Hampshire, Maine, wherever you are. Give her a shout out, give her an email. And she's awesome. I'll just tell you, she's a great person, and she is going to help you. So, all right, everybody. We totally appreciate you checking us out. And we always love it when you share, what do they call it? Smash the button. I'm trying to be cool. All that good stuff. So from all of us here in our parent podcast, Coming Home Well, and us here at Beyond the Front Line, we thank you so much. You guys all have an awesome week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Front Line, a podcast of Coming Home Well. Join us every other Wednesday. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review.